let's talk about the ruble. I want to talk about the ruble because the ruble has been a weird flashpoint for this war. A point that has been often made a big topic by propagandists. When the Russians invaded Ukraine, something that immediately happened, one of the immediate reactions we could see, was when it came to the price of the ruble, which dropped extremely quickly. It then stabilized after the Russian government introduced artificial price controls, increased the interest rates, and did whatever was necessary to stop its descent, which even meant stopping people from trading the ruble for other forms of currency. So artificially trapping people with their rubles. And for a while, even if the price was artificially kept high, and that if you were trading on the black market, you're gonna get a much worse price, you know, the ruble was vaguely stable enough. Recently, though, the situation has gotten worse and worse and worse for the ruble, with the ruble losing over 40% of its value in the last year alone. We're talking about the last 8.5 months. This means that now the ruble is at a value of about 1 cent to every US dollar. At one point, I even saw it went lower than 1 cent for every US dollar. Let's read a little bit of this article. The Russian ruble has dropped to its lowest value since the beginning of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, CNN reported on August 14th. The Russian currency is now worth less than a cent, falling past 100 rubles to the dollar, a 40% decrease in its value this year. Despite a summer bump in oil revenues, the Russian economy continues to be battered by Western sanctions and the cost of waging war in Ukraine. More countries have divested from Russian oil and gas, slashing Russia's export and income to half its pre-war levels. That's true. Russian governmental income, that means Russian government revenues, have been cut in half by the war. Russian exports, we're talking oil and gas exports and profits over that, that has been cut massively. And you combine that with a 200 to 300% increase in military spending and sanctions, and yeah, the ruble is not faring too well. They could keep it up artificially for long enough to try to control from the initial shock, at least publicly speaking, at least in the eyes of the public. But it was only a matter of time until this started to buckle in on itself. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, a low value for the ruble isn't necessarily all bad. There are some positive aspects in having a low value currency. But when the Russian economy is already facing so many different economic crises, like we already said, 50% reduction in government revenues, 200 to 300% increase in military spending. We're seeing a exodus of Western jobs and companies which had invested into Russia, pulling out, with many of them also taking the jobs with them. And those jobs, which used to be filled by Russians, are leading many Russians to flee the country, period. That's on top of people fleeing the country because they don't want to be drafted and thrown into the meat grinder. If you go through the Russian economy and how it's faring, whether it be the state of its rail lines, the state of its airplanes, or any of these factors, what you're going to find is the Russian economy is not faring well. And up until this point, the one counter that I would hear from Russian state propagandists is, but look at the value of the ruble though. But now even that has fallen through. And it has caused actually some backlash back at home. Not only has the Russian government reacted to trying to salvage the situation by increasing interest rates from 8% to 12%. That's an increase of over 50% in an attempt to stabilize the price. So far, while it's had some impact, it hasn't had much impact. If you look up ruble value to USD right now, still at 1 cent. You can see, look at this little bump. It's not that much. We'll have to find out how much progress it makes in recovery tomorrow, but I don't think it's going to be a ton. And all this does is kick the can down the road. All this does is kick the can down the road. And Russians know this. Recently, there was a protest against this, against the devaluation of the ruble, which means people's savings are being grounded up. Imagine you have $100,000 in savings that you have in rubles. 100,000. You have an amount of rubles that are of a value of 100,000 US dollars. Through this year, that would have reduced to 60,000 US dollars, losing 40% of its value. That could really whittle away the little savings that many Russians do have or were able to get. Anyway, due to the bad status of the Russian economy, Russians are starting to react. Discontent is starting to bubble up. Here's an example: a protest where somebody took an electronic sign and left a message about the Russian economy managers, the people who manage the economy, and the ruble. Listen to this.
1 penny is all it takes to buy an entire Russian ruble. Russia's currency hitting a 17-month low against the U.S. dollar. In fact, the ruble has lost nearly 40% of its value so far this year. And in Russia, people are taking notice of this milestone. Just look at this news ticker. This is from Surgut. It's a Siberian oil town. I noticed this. Max Seddon of the Financial Times, a friend of the show, flagged it online. We verified it, geolocated it. Someone put in text that reads, quote, 100 rubles to $1. Lost your effing mind? Putin is an expletive and a thief. Out front now, the U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and Secretary...
An expletive and a thief. Ooh, that's pretty rough. That's pretty rough. An expletive and a thief. But, hey, that's just one Russian, right? You know, how many Russians would actually go out of their way to say, you know what, I will allow the currency to devalue. If the currency wants to devalue, I'm going to spend up all my savings. That's fine. It is what it is, as long as we win the war. Who knows? I do have a channel that can help us try to answer that question or give us a little bit more insight, though. And that's 1420. 1420 is a Russian YouTube channel that goes around asking everyday Russians their opinion on a host of topics. Most known for is asking them questions about the war in Ukraine. And recently, they released a video titled "Our Currency is Drowning" in reference to the ruble going through devaluation. In this video, he talks to people about the currency losing value, and I am very interested in hearing what the Russians have to say. Let's listen.
Ladies and gentlemen, $1 costs you 100 rubles right now in Russia. Actually, it's not 100 rubles, it's 99.25. And most of the time, it was 75 rubles per dollar. Something happened, we're going to ask Russians what's going on. Dollar. It costs you 100 rubles in Russia right now. Why is that?
He wants to have an humor answer, or what's the
honest, very aggressive, very straightforward answer.
For me, it's nothing, because I now live here, and so I don't use dollar in my routine time.
No, actually, you use dollars, but not directly, indirectly.
Of course.
Everything here, these cars, check this out.
Yeah.
Everything costs you dollars, all of them. Even this Russian car, I believe, will cost you dollars too.
I don't earn by myself. I live with parents and study in university. So, since my born, ruble always falls. So I don't really worry about it. I know that...
Since I've always born, ruble always falls. That's not the best sentiment.
Economy happens, bad things are happens. So that's why the ruble is falls. But myself is just not controlling it, just being a good person and trying to survive.
$1 100 рублей.
Юбилей, может быть, у него, возможно, круглая, да?
It's called an anniversary, a milestone, 100.
Конечно, очень.
It's easy to convert now, definitely. Can we fix it somehow so it'll be $100? 1 second.
Очень удобно.
Как-нибудь исправить это можно?
So that'll be $100 for a ruble?
Было $100.
А давайте доллар не
Just don't buy dollars.
Будем с деревянным.
We will only use the ruble.
Всё.
Well, that's what's happening. Well, that's what they're trying to do right now. And it's not working. Because nobody in the international space really wants to use ruble all that much.
Ну,
We will support domestic producers. We will grow to the countryside and grow potatoes. We'll plant carrots. We'll fix cabbage. We'll plant flax.
в 30 лет
So they're going to make up the export deficit with cabbage and flax. Got you.
умирать, как раньше.
And then die at like 30 before. We just all go to the countryside. We have our own Russian way.
Да, ну а почему надо...
We need to raise agriculture. Return to the roots, and then the dollar will not be needed. Oh, so she's like an agrarian. She's like Pol Pot. Just force all the, just take all the Russians, put them in the countryside, and they're not gonna need dollars. They can just grow everything they need. We don't need the division of labor. Just grow your own farms. I think a lot of factors influence this. It's hard to answer that now, but the main one is politics.
Политика.
Politics. Yes.
Ага. То есть дальше лучше не...
So we probably shouldn't proceed?
Есть такая мысль.
Probably.
Shit happens.
Shit happens.
Yeah, exactly, but why exactly to us?
So, what do you want to say?
What's
About
happened?
politics, about situation, about shit happens. That's it. So sorry, folks.
Yeah,
Sorry.
nah.
We don't live in a free country.
Okay, no
Okay.
problem. Thank you.
So to be clear, it could be a provocation. Anything. Bye bye.
Bye bye. So right now we're at Flacon.
Probably pretty difficult to discuss the most basic of issues that Russians are facing on the daily if you can't even openly discuss why you're facing a devaluation of your currency, why your currency is devaluing faster than fucking what were they called? NFTs. They're devaluing faster than the average NFT. There has to be an explanation for that. But I mean, if you create a culture of fear, then maybe you just won't ask any questions.
And mostly it's young people hang around here, and we're going to ask them what's going on. $1. Мы снимаем опросы.
Что вы спрашиваете? Можно я снимусь? И это просто из-за санкций.
It's because of the sanctions.
Ну, к сожалению,
Sadly.
это для нас, конечно,
It's not the best that could happen to us, but we can find some workarounds.
учитывая этих обстоятельств.
А ну как-то можно?
Can we get rid of the sanctions? Are we bad people or what?
На данный момент
There is a special military operation that's happening right now, and a lot of things are related to it.
Нужно получить.
And we need to finish it.
Заканчивать, да?
ну, примерно.
Something around that, yeah.
Удалить Америку.
I wonder if she means like end it as in pull out or end it as in win it. Oh, this guy, the Danny, age 33, the blacksmith, he has a good answer. We need to delete the United States. Will it get better then?
Вы знаете, пока в принципе
Nothing will get better until society becomes more intelligent.
разумом не повысится, ничего лучше не станет в принципе. Потому что каждый
Every man holds on to his interests, his money, and it will progress like this.
расти. Но в Северной Корее, это знаете?
People in the DPRK have a common interest. They started with themselves, finished, and are now enjoying life.
Там все у них кайфует там.
The North Koreans are enjoying life, that is true. Those lucky bastards.
Я лучше буду здесь жить, чем
I'd rather live here than in North Korea.
вообще шанс есть.
But actually, we can have a chance to turn into North Korea.
Событиями
They are squeezing tighter and tighter here.
шанс есть, да, превратиться реально в Северную Корею.
Отсутствие
It's just because of a decrease in foreign trade. That's all.
внешней торговли просто. И всё.
Не хотят покупать, да?
That is a big contributor. Well, I mean, actually, no. It would be an increase of imports and a decrease of exports.
Ничего, Россия.
They don't want to buy anything Russian, do they?
Покупать,
Yeah, they don't want to buy from us. We don't have enough foreign currency. That's it.
Хотят покупать, может,
Why don't they want to buy from us?
нормальный товар у нас, да?
We have a solid merchandising. Oil, gas.
Газ.
Да, ну они же санкции, правильно?
Yes, but it's under sanctions, so it's low bargaining. And not much money coming into us. Hey, mildly disinterested 47. Thank you so much for the tier 1. I appreciate that, buddy.
Низко торгуются, мало денежек нам поступает. Приходится поднимать.
We have to raise the rates. That's the way I see it.
Кстати говоря,
By the way,
3 миллиарда.
Russia has written off $23 billion to African countries.
Слышали о таком?
Да, слышал, кстати.
Yes, sadly, I heard about this. I can't comment on it. Your money was used for this too.
С моих денег.
Yes, my money was used.
У нас говорится,
In our country, it's called geopolitics.
да? Ну,
2 more countries will be voting for us at the UN.
африканская страна. Ладно, в общем,
Будут, но не точно.
They might or might
how
not.
can we change it then? As
suppose we need to do something in economic structure. We need to do something with change in political structure.
You were not straightforward with your answer. You said something in politics, to change something in politics, to change something in economics.
Yes.
But like, let's get straightforward. What do we need to change in politics and in economics?
I'm not a political guy. I can't answer what we need to change.
Uh-oh, no answer.
Even people who are political scientists in Russia, when we ask them, they tell us, I cannot tell you this.
You know,
political.
Because you know the situation. If you don't know the situation, you need to.
Yeah, I know.
You need to check it.
Man,
А будущее-то у нас какое?
there is something really just horrifically dystopian about you constantly being like, well, I would talk about this, but if I do talk about this, I could go to prison, so I'm not going to talk about this. So I can't talk about the most basic of tabletop issues affecting my family, like the devaluation of the ruble. What type of future are we expecting? A good one.
Хорошее там ожидается.
Я из Беларуси, я не
I'm from Belarus. I don't believe in a good future.
То есть нехорошее у нас пока.
Apparently it won't be good. It seems so.
Ну как справиться, чтобы было хорошее?
How do we fix it?
Я не знаю, насколько это реально.
I don't know how much is possible, but I think you need a global change in the whole management structure.
Всей структуры, не знаю, управления, экономики, то есть.
It has to be something big and global, but what I'm seeing now makes me think it's impossible.
К сожалению, сейчас то, что я вижу, заставляет меня думать, что это невозможно.
То есть исправить мы не сможем.
So we can't fix anything. So that, for example, 1 ruble will be $100.
Есть президент.
There is a president that 80% of the population voted for.
80%
They trust him.
населения. То есть они ему доверяют, поэтому.
Look at his face on the right. He asked him about, like, hey, tell me about inflation. What do you think about inflation? What do you think about the devaluation of the currency? Everyone loves Putin. Putin is great. Oh, okay. Well, that isn't concerning at all. Apparently he's on the right track. Anyway, you can't please everyone, so.
Всем не угодишь, как говорится.
Putin is taking the right steps. He is gradually restoring order. He'll put things in order there first, then there, step by step, little by little. Thank him very much for preserving Russia. It might not have existed at all. Comrade Yeltsin and Gorbachev sold everything to the West. Yes, if I've learned anything from this war, it's that everyone would like Russia more, and it would be facing an easier chance of survival if they just kept invading. Invade countries, start wars that you have no business in, conquer, ethnically cleanse. These are all the best ways to make allies. Comrades Yeltsin and Gorbachev sold everything to the West. And Putin is slowly starting to put things back together. How would your life be different if everything was sold to the West? Neither I would exist nor Russia. How come? Russia would be a concentration camp I wouldn't survive in. Wait, if there's more Western aid to Russia, Russia will become a giant concentration camp? Wow, man. I didn't know Zelensky had this plan in mind. This was a secret plan the whole time? Who could have thought? Who could have thunk it? They keep 15 million people to service the oil pipeline and wipe out the rest. Okay, so he thinks it's gonna be like Lebensraum, like mass genocide. In the West, there is no concentration camp. They instead put monuments to the places. They made a natural concentration camp out of Ukraine. Now it is impossible to live there, only to fight there. Well, the reason people are fighting there is because the Russians invaded. They made a natural concentration camp out of Ukraine. The Russians invade Ukraine, and it is the Americans' fault that they're fighting. Okay, got you. Sure. The West did it there? The West. And the Ukrainians themselves were friends with us. I was friends with them. Oh, yeah, I remember. I was talking to this one Ukrainian activist the other day, and he was telling me about Andre, age 53, the delivery worker, who, you know, was, you know, it really, you know, he was in the weeds debating, you know, the Ukrainians on the future of the country.
Украине. Очень хорошие ребята. Но то, что сделали с ними, их никто не спрашивал.
Ну, вот как раз нас люди...
By the way, foreigners watch us. Could you explain to them why they're doing this?
Какая у них была причина-то это делать?
Ну как причина?
This is a system of evil and a system of light. There's a system of evil and a system of light. The West is a system of darkness that wants to maintain its dominance. Time is already running out. Their powers are already running out. Their magical power is already ceasing to work. Dude, what the fuck is this? That's why they turned the violence. What is this, like, Harry Potter Sorcerer's Stone ass? Like, what? Like, oh, the evil United States with its dark forces of evil and global homo globo is destroying the world, and we must go in to save the day. Get the fuck out of here. Come on. I don't even think he believes this.
Мы, получается, добро, они зло.
We're good, they're evil, we fight evil, correct? Russia's mission is to save the world. We do it as best we can. Sometimes badly, but we do our best. Yeah, Ukraine looks very saved.
С этим не поспоришь.
I can't argue with that. I have nothing else to add. Man,
we were watching.
No, I don't want to watch Hillary Clinton again. My goodness, man. As always, people are scared to answer questions. There are people who acknowledge that the war has worsened their economic situation, while others continue to completely drink the Kool-Aid and say that, oh, it'll all be under control very shortly, and we were forced into this war. Oh, we were forced to invade Ukraine. Give me a break.